As we talk about the writing process, it's important to discuss both the whats and the hows. The whats are the steps a writer needs to take as they begin to formulate and develop their ideas. The hows are the strategy choices one needs to make in order to implement the whats. In other words, the whats tell you what to do in each stage, and the hows tell us how to do it. The writing process, as we're going to be working with it, has three stages. Stage one is exploring, experimenting, and gathering information. Well, what does this mean? Imagine for a moment that you decided to go to the beach and hike in the hills overlooking the water. Now imagine that on this hike you decided to take a new path, and on that path you come across the entrance to a cave. You're feeling adventurous and want to explore inside the cave. What do you need to know about the cave in order to do so? What would you like to know about it? Perhaps you need to know how deep it is, how tall it is, and whether or not there is any light inside. After all, if there's no light, you might need a flashlight before you can go any further. You might want to also know if any animals happen to be living in the cave. What if the cave suddenly starts to fill with water? When you are exploring a topic, much like a cave, you need to constantly ask questions. Specifically, when exploring, you need to figure out what you know, some things you can decipher about the cave immediately, what you don't know, some things about the cave will be discovered as you go, and what you need to know. In the case of the cave, what information is essential to maintain safety. Basically, this part of stage one is meant to help you generate ideas. The next part of stage one is to experiment. Once you've figured out what you know, what you don't know, and what you need to know, you can begin drawing relationships between the ideas you've generated. Are you seeing any patterns in the information you've written down? Do you use any descriptive words? Do you see any similarities or differences in the items you've written down? Is there a cause and effect relationship developing? Finally, once you can narrow down the information and how it's related, you could start the final part of stage one, gathering information. This is exactly how it sounds. You will do some research when needed if you have any questions or concerns about the ideas you've generated. Now that we've reviewed the whats of stage one, let's talk about the hows. Most specifically, how does one actually explore an experiment? What does it look like? In order to complete stage one, there are a number of idea-generating strategies you can implement. A partial list can be found on this slide, and we will review what each strategy is in case you're not familiar on the next few slides. We'll start with clustering. A cluster, sometimes called a bubble map, is a great visual way to get both your ideas on paper and also begin to see how items are related. Write down the topic in the center of your paper. I like to put 2 circles around it so it stands out. Then I write down in a separate connected bubble an idea about the topic. For example, if my general topic is movies, I might write down westerns or sci-fi in a connected circle. These are called subtopics. Then, for each subtopic I might write down as many ideas as I can think of related to that subtopic in surrounding little circles that are connected to it. What I end up with is a series of connected circles or bubbles. When I'm done, usually I suggest spending a solid 10 or 15 minutes clustering. I can take a look and decide which ideas I think are most interesting, or the ideas I think are most important, or the ideas that I seem to know the most about, and highlight them on a page. I can then use those ideas in another strategy to develop them even more. Now that I've generated my ideas via the cluster, I can use other strategies to help me develop my ideas further. I can brainstorm, free write, or use a Venn diagram if appropriate. A brainstorm will ask you to answer the following about the ideas or topic you are working with. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. These questions can be answered in sentences, sentence fragments, lists, or whatever method makes the most sense to you. Free writing, when on a general topic or focused on a subtopic, we call this focused free writing, is when you set a timer and keep writing for the length of the timer. 5 or 10 minutes is all you need. If at any point during this time, and sometimes free writing can feel like time lasts forever, you need to literally write down, I don't know what else to say. I'm out of ideas. I can't believe I have to keep writing. This is weird. My English teacher is amazing. In other words, as long as you keep writing, even if you get off topic a little bit, you will ultimately end up generating more ideas. Another strategy you can use, which can be especially helpful when you are working on a comparison-contrast relationship, is the Venn diagram. A Venn diagram is simply two or more overlapping circles that allow you to identify the similarities and differences between two or more items or ideas. Simply write the similarities in the shared space and the differences in the outside spaces, and you can easily see how those ideas are similar and different from each other. Another strategy you can use, also really helpful, especially if you're a visual person, is a tree diagram. It is kind of a more organized version of a cluster. Write your general topic at the top and create branches of subtopic ideas that branch out below it. Again, you want to spend a solid 10 minutes generating your branches so you can easily see where your interests and knowledge may be, and more importantly, where they align. Don't forget, although it wasn't specifically covered, you can always create lists or simple outlines of ideas. Listing strategies are great, especially if you are a linear thinker. By generating multiple lists, you can use lines to draw connections and start seeing patterns and relationships. When we work with the writing process in this course, you will always be asked to complete at least 2 forms of Stage 1 pre-writing. If you ever find yourself confused, I hope you will review these slides or email me so we can get you back on track as quickly as possible.